Hey guys, it's Daniel here, and once again, I'm back with a new review. And today, I'm going to be reviewing a kind of interesting movie. Okay, maybe not that interesting, but interesting in the sense that this was the movie that everybody wanted to hate the most. And mainly thanks to probably some advertising, or some controversial stories behind it, or the fact that this is just another Disney remake, which, unfortunately, a lot of people don't seem to have too much of a favourable opinion on. And today, I'm going to be reviewing the remake of the Disney classic, Snow White. So the premise of Snow White follows, well, Snow White, a maid who works for an evil queen of a kingdom, who believes that she's the fairest of them all thanks to her beauty. However, when the mirror on the wall tells the queen that Snow White is much more fairer than the queen decides to have poor Snow White executed. So Snow White is now on the run from her kingdom, and on the way through the woods, she comes across these mysterious yet very charming dwarves who decide to help Snow White go up against the evil queen and stop all of the evil that's been roaming through the kingdom and make the kingdom fair again, as the real, true, fairest of all leads this adventure. So, I am going to be making a very, very, very controversial statement. And I really, really want people to just keep their cool when I say this. I have actually never truly seen the original animated Snow White. Keep the pitchforks down and all the torches, put them away. Let me explain, because I know a lot of people are going to be like, "What? How dare you, Daniel? You would just... Why would you do that? Why would you not see the original Snow White? It's the Disney classic that started the Disney formula of animated movies. How could you not see that? I'm on subbing right now." Two things. First of all, there are lots of Disney animated movies, like at least over between 50 and 100. There's like full Disney animated movies all of the time, so of course I'm not going to be able to see all of them. Secondly, this movie was made in 1939, I believe 1939 or 1938, and it was the first Disney animated movie. And honestly, I feel much more likely that I've seen movies that are much more like in the 30 years timeline or 40 years timeline than like nearly 90 years, because it's like it's 2025 right now and that movie came out in 1938 or 9. So the oldest movies that were from that timeline I most likely might not have seen. So that's something that I really want to mention, because I'm going into this movie, this live-action remake, just judging it on its own merits, because I haven't seen the original. And with a lot of the controversy surrounding Rachel Zegler's dismissive thoughts of the original movie, the fact that there's like these CGI dwarves, some things about Rachel Zegler especially, that people do not take nicely, and they decide, you know what, since she's the lead actress, we're just going to put this blame on the movie as well, so we're not going to even be able to see it. And it seemed like everybody who hated the idea of this movie and the controversies behind the movie wanted this film to fail. I mean, it even has like a 2 out of 10 on IMDb, which, honestly, that is a bit of a stretch, because I've seen people who have talked to me about this as well, and I kind of agree with them. It feels like the people who gave those ratings on IMDb haven't even seen the movie. They just want it to flop. And honestly, I personally feel like that the controversies behind it and its relation with the original Snow White, in my opinion, should not affect my opinion on the movie, or a lot of people's opinions on the movie, because we're going in to watch the movie. I feel like that everything that happens outside of the movie shouldn't affect my opinion on the movie as its own thing. As well as people saying, oh my god, this movie ruined the original Snow White movie. Now my Snow White movie is ruined, the original. And I'm just like, you do know this is not the same film, right? Like, we still have the original Snow White. It's not like that movie's just gone out of existence forever and this is the only one we have. There's DVDs, Disney Plus as well, any place you can watch the original Snow White, so Snow White is gone. But anyway, I've had enough talking about the controversies and, like, people, like, wanting this movie to fail, so I decided not to watch the original Snow White before I watch this one, so I can judge it as its own thing. And as its own thing, it's not as bad as people are saying it's out to be, but I think it's like very mid, but not the greatest. But I don't think it's as bad. So what do I like about the movie? Well, first off, I do think that the performances, for the most part, were really good from most of the cast members. One of the major standouts, in my opinion, is of course Rachel Zegler as Snow White herself. I think that she did a pretty good job capturing the kindness and the determination of this princess who wants everything to be fair. Her facial expressions in many of the happy moments looked really endearing, and even moments where she had to look confident did look very, like, confident, and she seemed like she was putting her all into making it a very strong character and performance. Now, that's not to say that I think the performance was perfect and all, which I will get to later, but it's mainly due to a major problem I have with this movie. But again, I'll get to that later, and she sings very, very well. You can't, like, even people that want to hate on Rachel Zegler, which, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that have because of, like, what's been going on. You cannot deny that this woman has some real singing talent, and I thought she was good in West Side Story. I haven't seen Shazam or the Hunger Games movie, but I also thought that she was good in this one as well, and she did a great job with her performance as Snow White. I also feel like that some of the performances from the dwarves were very good as well. I have a certain thing to say about the dwarves, and again I'll get to that later, but the dwarves came off as very funny, they came off as very charming and very endearing, especially the silent dwarf, Dopey. He was very, like, charming, and even though he doesn't say a word, you can tell the facial expressions of what he's feeling at the time, and he definitely has the biggest heart out of all the dwarves, and I think his friendship with Snow White was very, very endearing to watch. I also feel like that the visual effects, while there is something I'll say about it later, the colour palette of most of the scenes in the movie did look very colourful and very nice to look at, and many of the sets looked visually pleasing. And again, visual effects for the sets, because the kingdom looked very huge. The queen's lair, when you see the magic mirrors, is so colourfully but also intensely lit. And Snow White's dress, while it does kind of look like a bit of a cosplay of Snow White's dress, did look very colourful as well. So I think the colours of the Snow White remake did look very visually pleasing. And I suppose the last thing I'll say that I really, really liked about the movie was the music. While there aren't any major musical numbers that majorly iconic in my opinion, many of them do sound very epic and very Broadway-style amazementness. Like Snow White's song Waiting on a Wish, the dwarf song of hi ho, it's off to work we go, the whistle while you work, that was very catchy as well, and I think that's just about it. I think those are the songs that I really, really liked, and with Waiting on a Wish being a new song that was, like, really well added, and Rachel's voice and, like, the kind of, like, echoey and beat that this song has is very epic to listen to, and dwarf songs with Hi Ho and Whistle While You Work definitely capture the magic of what I feel like the original Snow White could have had, but standing on its own, it definitely sounds like something that the magic of Disney would have. And I believe those are all the good things I have to say about the movie. As for the rest of the movie, In my opinion, the biggest problem I have with this movie has to be its drastic change in tone. The tone of this movie, in terms of, like, the story and the writing, feels so disjointed that it makes the movie feel like it's losing its direction on what exactly it wants to be. It could be some filming issues and writing issues behind this movie, but I can clearly tell that this movie is really struggling on what it wants to be. Does it want to be like a very strong, determined movie about female strength and some darkness and grim atmosphere to it? Or does it want to be like another one of those Disney movies that has its joyful spirit and its high-lifting, bubbly nature? And I guess that's what a lot of Disney movies do as well, when they have like a dark tone and a light tone, but I feel like most of them do a better job at blending the two tones together than I feel like it did in this one. I don't know how exactly they did a better job, but I just felt like many of the other Disney movies had better blending of these different tones than I feel like this movie about Snow White is. And because of the drastic change in tone, a lot of other elements about the movie is very affected. Like, for example, the movie wants to present a message of how kindness and fairness is the best way to go, and how it's demonstrated and how it needs to be returned to the people. I do think that this is a very uplifting and very important message to have. However, because of its drastic change of tone, it feels like that the combination of both the tones with this message isn't exactly well fitted in some of these scenarios. And when the movie does want to present the message on screen and present it to the audience, it is very heavy-handed. Like, there are only so many times I can hear Snow White talking about how love and kindness and fairness and, like, fairness, love and kindness and all that stuff. I think there's comes a point where she would say those words many times before it gets a little bit too preachy and a little bit too patronizing. It's like the movie, even though it's a Disney movie and one of the major target audience for Disney viewers is children, it feels like the movie is not fully confident in the children gathering the information or soft hints to this message, so they have to have Snow White herself spell it out to the audience, unconfident about whether or not the audience can gather the message themselves. I do love the moral that this movie contains, I really do, as it's a moral that should be applied to real life in this day and age, because we are kind of struggling with that a few times. I mean, I'm not one to judge, but I do notice that there are a bit more trouble out there in the world, and we should have this kind of level of human respect and politeness. But when the movie tries to talk about the same words over and over again, to the point where the audience is just like, okay, we get the message of the movie already, you don't have to keep displaying it, it makes the movie come off as a bit too patronizing, and feels like that the audience should be given some hints, and maybe one or two mentions of this message, so we can gather the moralness of the storytelling ourselves. Another thing that's very affected by a lot of the tone differences is the pacing. There are moments where I feel like this movie goes way too fast. I always say this for a lot of movies, but I'm going to keep saying it. Maybe it's just my own personal attention span problem, because I do seem to see the world and some movies as going very fast at a breakneck speed, but in this movie, I'm going to say it again, the pacing is very fast in many areas where I feel like the editing from scene to scene is not smoothly transitioned. One of the major problems I have with many other Disney remakes, at least with the Aladdin remake, is that the opening of the movie has a narration and scenes happening where the narrator is explaining what's going on in the scene, but that backstory and flashbacks seem to go very fast, as if, oh, have you seen the original Snow White? Well then we don't need to display it again, we'll just go by it really fast. But again, I haven't seen the original Snow White, and I feel like with a remake, you need to be careful about how you tell your storytelling, because if the audience's enjoyment of this movie depends on whether or not they've seen the original Snow White, then it's just going to feel like fan service. And again, there are many moments in the movie where I feel like scenes need to slow down, and story elements need to really be displayed better. I also feel like some of the performances from the movie do seem a little bit hammy or a little bit too phoned in. And I think one of the major ones, which I'll address this elephant in the room, is Wonder Woman herself, Gal Gadot, as the Evil Queen. And yes, I know it's Gadot, but I think Gadot just has a nice ring to it. But no disrespect for Gal Gadot. I do really like Gal Gadot in what I've seen her in, despite people talking about some controversies behind her. But I haven't seen them yet, so I don't really know. But her performance in this movie, which this is really funny because I've never really seen Gal Gadot as having like a bit of a phony side to her when she is acting and having some unbelievable acting. I've just seen people like, okay, she says that she's doing a good job. And then this movie comes out and we realize, oh, wait a second, she was never that great of an actor to begin with. Like, what the hell happened? Like, I never really saw it. So, I guess this is, in my opinion, just this movie alone. But her performance seems like she's trying a bit too hard to make the character of the Queen seem so hammy and over-the-top level evil, to the point where her line deliveries don't seem believable. And when she's singing her songs, because she does have songs in the movie, she is kind of struggling with the tones and the beats of the song, to the point where I don't think her singing is bad, but it's not like the same level of Rachel Zegler, in my opinion. Again, I'm not trying to hate on Gal Gadot's performance here, but she wasn't the greatest, and the character of the Queen just has the same motives again and again. She wants to be the fairest of them all, she believes kindness is terrible and not needed, and, you know, evil needs to be the way to go. And there's nothing else to her. She just never really came off as a very interesting antagonist. And maybe the one in the original didn't have many good motives as well, but I think, okay, I haven't seen the original, but maybe the performance of the actress and over-the-topness of the original might have been handled better than Gal Gadot's performance here. And she also does something towards the end of the movie, because in the climax there's supposed to be some sort of demise, but the way her demise goes out was so stupid, okay? It was like, if you knew that this would be, like, a very important factor to you, why would you destroy it? Like, it was pretty stupid. Also, there's a love interest for Snow White in this movie. I can't remember what his name is, but I felt no chemistry whatsoever, to the point where we have, like, one of the most iconic scenes in Snow White history with the apple. I won't give away too much about it, but when it involves the love interest, I just like, okay, we're gonna have this happen, even though I don't feel like they shared any chemistry, because, again, the movie is so quick that we don't get enough, like, real time, because suddenly his personality changed at a drop of a dime, so I never felt like that Snow White really found her true love. And, well, okay, I'll address the elephant in the room, the CGI. I don't think it's horrible, and I do think that the CGI on the animals do look very endearing and so, like, cute. Like, oh my god, is that a real deer and dove and squirrel? Like, oh, they look so cute. Oh. But yeah, because they try so hard to make it look like that, whenever a movie has a cartoony tone and they try to make the animals in real life look very, very cute, I feel like that CGI on it doesn't look like it's truly there, but I feel like they're pretty good. As for the dwarves, however, yeah, I will admit, yeah, I do agree with some people. The dwarves' CGI and motion capture do not look that good. And I also can understand why people would get creeped out by these dwarves. I mean, maybe that's how dwarves, like, in terms of like a magical fairy tale, when it's brought into live action film, maybe that's usually how they look, so maybe I'm just not seeing too much. But in terms of the dwarves in this movie, they do look like they're there, but kind of to a creepy, kind of visually unpleasing level. But I feel like the dwarves as characters were good and were definitely one of the most entertaining parts of the film and helped to save the movie, along with most of performance of Snow White's Rachel Zegler. But I do think that, yeah, there could have been better ways to present the dwarves on screen, because they do look a bit visually unpleasing. And I also will say, remember when I said that most of Rachel Zegler's performance was good? There are moments where I feel like she is kind of struggling with Snow White's identity, and it's mainly thanks to the change of tone in this movie, because the movie doesn't know whether or not they want Snow White to be just a typical happy-go-lucky princess, or a strong, determined girl who has more confidence in herself and wants to rise the stakes of being strong. So it feels like she's trying to do this really strange mix of both. I don't know. But again, she was really good for the most part. Overall, guys, I don't think this movie is as bad as people are saying it out to be, okay? I don't agree with its 2 out of 10 on IMDb. I don't know what the hell people were doing when they were giving him that rating, because again, I feel like most of them haven't even seen the movie, they just wanted this film to fail, but it's not the greatest either. I liked the performances of Rachel Zegler and the dwarves, the music was good, and it has some nice visual colours, but the change of tone, pacing difficulties, preachy message, which is endearing, but it's too heavy-handed, and kind of a bit uncanny valley CGI, holds the movie down, and it doesn't really make it that big. And even though I haven't seen the original Snow White, it also kind of makes sense how a lot of Disney remakes are not really made with too much heart, and more just making them just for making money. But again, I don't think this movie's terrible. I think it's mid, and it does have good elements, but the relationships between its characters, the constant change of tone, doesn't really make me too invested into it. So, overall, I'll give this movie a 2.5 out of 5. It's not the greatest, but it's also not that bad either. It's just kind of there. But again, I don't think it's as bad as people are making it out to be. So anyway guys, what do you think of Snow White? Do you love it? Do you hate it? And what Disney remake have you seen that is a remake of an original Disney film that you actually haven't seen before? Let me know in the comment section below. More videos to come, and I'm Daniel reviewing movies, TV shows, and doing videos, just waiting on a wish, holding out for someday that I make videos every day and not slacking off. I do want to try and sing well, but I personally don't feel like I sing that well. But what do you guys think? I don't know. Anyway, peace out, man.